Button mushroom. Button mushrooms are the most widely cultivated mushrooms in the world, and they all come from Agaricus bisporus, the same species as Crimini and Portobello. Commercial production expanded rapidly in France during the 1700s, especially in limestone caves around Paris, where humidity and darkness were ideal. They are grown in composted material made from straw, manure, gypsum, and water, then covered with a casing layer that triggers fruiting. Their flavor is mild, slightly earthy, and clean, which makes them useful in soups, sauces, pizzas, and stir-fries. Because they contain around 90% water, they shrink quickly when cooked, concentrating their savory taste. Crimini mushroom. Crimini mushrooms are simply a more mature brown form of Agaricus bisporus, harvested later than white button mushrooms but earlier than portobellos. They became popular in North American supermarkets in the late 20th century as cooks began looking for stronger mushroom flavor without changing cooking methods. Crimini mushrooms are cultivated in the same controlled rooms as button mushrooms, using compost beds and carefully managed humidity. Their brown caps contain slightly more developed flavor compounds, giving them a deeper, nuttier taste. The texture is firmer than white buttons, so they hold up well in stews, sautés, and meat-based sauces. Portobello mushroom. Portobello mushrooms are fully mature Agaricus bisporus, allowed to grow until their caps open wide and expose dark gills underneath. They became especially popular in the United States during the 1980s and 1990s, when they were marketed as a hearty vegetarian substitute for steak or burgers. Their size is not a separate species but a result of longer growth. A mature portobello can reach 10 to 15 centimeters across, with a dense, chewy texture. The flavor is earthy, smoky, and slightly meaty after grilling or roasting. Because the gills release dark liquid, cooks often scrape them out for cleaner sauces and fillings. Shiitake mushroom. Shiitake mushrooms originated in East Asia and have been cultivated in China and Japan for over 1,000 years. Their name comes from the Japanese shi tree, a type of hardwood on which they naturally grow. Traditional cultivation used logs inoculated with spores, while modern farms often use sawdust blocks enriched with nutrients. Shiitake mushrooms contain lanthanin, a beta-glucan studied for its biological activity, and they are rich in guanylate compounds that intensify umami flavor. Fresh shiitakes are tender and smoky, while dried shiitakes become darker, stronger, and almost broth-like. They are essential in ramen, stir-fries, dumplings, and many vegetarian stocks. Oyster mushroom. Oyster mushrooms belong to the Pleurotus genus and grow naturally on decaying wood. They were first cultivated commercially in Germany during World War I as a practical food source during shortages. Unlike many mushrooms, oysters can grow quickly on straw, sawdust, coffee grounds, or agricultural waste, making them one of the easiest mushrooms to farm sustainably. Their fan-shaped caps resemble oyster shells, and their texture becomes silky when cooked. The flavor is mild, slightly sweet, and sometimes faintly seafood-like. Oyster mushrooms are often sautéed, fried, or added to soups, where their delicate structure absorbs sauces and broths extremely well. King oyster mushroom. King oyster mushrooms are the largest species in the oyster mushroom group, known scientifically as Pleurotus aringi. They are native to Mediterranean regions, parts of North Africa, and Central Asia, where they grow near the roots of plants in the Apiaceae family. Unlike regular oyster mushrooms, the stem is the prized part. It is thick, white, and dense, with a texture that stays firm after cooking. When sliced crosswise and seared, king oysters can resemble scallops in both appearance and chew. Their flavor is mild, nutty, and savory, which makes them popular in Korean, Japanese, Chinese, and modern plant-based cooking. Enoki mushroom. Enoki mushrooms are long, thin, and white when cultivated, but wild enoki look very different, with darker caps and shorter stems. The pale supermarket version is grown in darkness and high carbon dioxide conditions, which encourages long stems and tiny caps. Enoki has been eaten in East Asia for centuries, especially in Japan, China, and Korea. Its texture is crisp when raw and pleasantly slippery when cooked. The flavor is delicate, slightly fruity and mild, so it is often added at the end of cooking. Enoki appears in hot pots, miso soup, noodle dishes, and foil-baked preparations with butter or soy sauce. Maitake mushroom. Maitake means dancing mushroom in Japanese, possibly because people were said to dance with joy when finding it in the wild. It grows in clusters at the base of oak and other hardwood trees, especially in Japan, China, Europe, and North America. In English, it is also called hen of the woods because its layered fronds resemble ruffled feathers. Maitake has been used in Japanese cooking for centuries and is now cultivated on sawdust blocks. Its texture is tender at the edges and slightly chewy near the base. The flavor is rich, earthy, peppery, and deeply savory, especially when roasted until the edges become crisp. Morel mushroom. Morels are among the most prized wild mushrooms, recognized by their honeycomb-like caps and hollow interiors. They appear in spring across North America, Europe, and parts of Asia, often near burned forests, old orchards, or certain hardwood trees. Morels are difficult to cultivate reliably, which is why wild harvesting remains important and prices can be high. They must be cooked before eating, as raw morels can cause stomach discomfort. Their flavor is nutty, woodsy, and slightly smoky, with a tender but meaty texture. In French and American cooking, morels are often paired with cream, butter, eggs, poultry, or spring vegetables. Chanterelle mushroom. Chanterelles are golden wild mushrooms famous for their trumpet-shaped, ridged undersides and fruity aroma. They grow in forests across Europe, North America, and Asia, forming mycorrhizal relationships with trees such as oak, beech, pine, and birch. Because they depend on living tree roots, they are difficult to farm commercially, so most chanterelles are foraged. They became especially valued in French cuisine during the 18th and 19th centuries. Their flavor is delicate, peppery, and slightly apricot-like, with a firm texture that does not collapse easily. Chanterelles are usually cooked gently with butter, herbs, cream, or eggs to preserve their fragrance. Porcini mushroom. Porcini mushrooms, known scientifically as Boletus edulis, are deeply associated with Italian, French, and Eastern European cooking. The Italian name means little pigs, referring to their plump shape. Porcini grow in forests with pine, chestnut, oak, and spruce trees, forming underground partnerships with roots. Like chanterelles, they are mostly wild foraged rather than farmed. Fresh porcini have a thick stem, brown cap, and dense, meaty texture. Dried porcini are even more intense because dehydration concentrates their glutamates and aromatic compounds. They bring a deep, nutty, almost beef-like flavor to risotto, pasta, soups, sauces, and broths. Truffle. Truffles are underground fungi, not typical cap and stem mushrooms, and they grow in symbiosis with trees such as oak, hazel, and beech. Famous varieties include black Perigord truffle from France and white Alba truffle from Italy. Humans have valued truffle since ancient Roman times, but organized truffle cultivation expanded in the 19th century when farmers learned to inoculate tree roots. Truffles are located by trained dogs, or historically pigs, because their aroma compounds are extremely powerful. Their flavor is musky, earthy, garlicky, and sometimes cheese-like. Because heat can destroy their aroma, white truffles are usually shaved raw over pasta, eggs, or risotto. Lion's mane mushroom. Lion's mane mushrooms are named for their cascading white spines, which resemble a shaggy mane rather than a traditional mushroom cap. They grow on hardwood trees in North America, Europe, and Asia, and have long been used in Chinese and Japanese food traditions. Modern cultivation uses sterilized sawdust blocks, where the mushroom forms dense clusters of soft, tooth-like strands. When cooked, lion's mane develops a fibrous texture often compared to crab or lobster meat. Its flavor is mild, sweet, and seafood-like, especially when seared with butter. It has also attracted scientific interest because it contains compounds such as hericenones and erinacines. Wood ear mushroom. Wood ear mushrooms are thin, dark, and ear-shaped fungi that grow on decaying wood. They have been eaten in China for at least 1,000 years and are often sold dried, then rehydrated before cooking. Unlike many mushrooms prized for aroma, wood ear is valued mainly for texture. It is crunchy, springy, and slightly gelatinous, holding its structure in soups, stir-fries, and cold salads. The flavor is very mild, allowing it to absorb soy sauce, vinegar, garlic, chili oil, and broth. In Chinese cuisine, wood ear often appears in hot and sour soup, mushu dishes, and vegetable stir-fries for contrast. Matsutake mushroom. Matsutake mushrooms are highly prized in Japan, Korea, China, and parts of the Pacific Northwest. They grow near pine and other trees, forming underground mycorrhizal relationships that make cultivation extremely difficult. In Japan, matsutake became a symbol of autumn and was already celebrated in poetry more than 1,000 years ago. Their scarcity increased after pine forests declined from disease and habitat changes, making high-quality specimens very expensive. Matsutake has a firm, almost crunchy texture and a powerful aroma, often described as spicy, pine-like, cinnamon-like, and earthy. It is commonly prepared simply in rice dishes, clear soups, or grilled whole to preserve its fragrance.